why don't we get started? So the meeting, a lot of other people, because of the conflict, we decided to do at 11:30 to accommodate some of the people, but actual 1 to 2 was the most of the people, they were free. No, sorry, 12 to 1 Eastern time. So why don't we go ahead and start so that a few people have to leave by 12 noon. We can capture their thought also, although I met with June 1-to-1 also, and Albert is also for the first time he's joining, so there will be people from the first time. So what I will do is I will go over and repeat a lot of things what happened last week in couple of weeks. So do we need introduction here, or I think we have some few new people, so why don't we go and introduce quickly. So I will start with myself. My name is Sunil Sinha. I am a professor and director at Virginia Tech. Let's see, John Green.
I'm John Green. I'm the Associate Director at Virginia Tech's Institute for Critical Technology and Applied Science and supporting Sunil.
Kathy.
I'm Kathy Laskowski. I'm a project manager at Virginia Tech, and I have been with Sunil for about 3 years now.
Great. June.
Hello, everyone. I'm June Lopez. I'm the general manager of Molten Miguel Water District.
Fenghua.
Hi, good morning. Fenghua Yang, a senior environmental research scientist with Chicago Metropolitan Water Reclamation District.
Great. Okay, let me go next. If I can. Who is the next? Hugh.
How's it going, Sunil?
Good. So can you briefly give introduction?
Sure. So I'm Hugh Sinclair. I'm the division manager for enterprise asset management at WSSC Water and also a swim board member.
Great. Erla? You are muted, Erla. Okay.
Hi, Irela Bagay, Miami-Dade County Chief Bay Officer.
Great. Steve Kaufman.
Good morning, Steve Kaufman. I'm the Resilient Services Branch Chief with the Department of Homeland Security, CISA.
Great. Ken Thompson.
Hi, Sunil. Ken Thompson. I'm the Global Technology Leader for Internet of Things and Smart Sensors with Jacobs out of our Denver office. Nice to meet you. Nice to see everybody.
Great. Albert Alcho.
Sorry, I was double muted. I'm Alcho. I'm at Down. Nice to see you all.
Great. Okay, Debbie Griner.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Debbie Griner with Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer Department Resilience Manager.
Great. Jima.
Good morning, everyone. It's Gemma Dunn here. I'm with GHD. I'm the water market leader for the Western Canada region. And just apologies, I have to drop in half an hour. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, no, Gemma, that's why June also has to drop. That's why we started at 11:30. A lot of other people will join at 1. We wanted to get everybody's input. Did I miss anyone?
Hey, this is Pierre Glenn. Sorry, joining late here.
Pierre, yeah, no, go ahead, Pierre.
USGS emeritus scientist.
Great. Yeah, I can see here the Salil also joined. Salil, can you introduce briefly? You are muted. Okay, maybe Salil is having trouble. Okay, we can go ahead, and then if Salil can come, then Salil is with DC Water. Just for Salil, you are there? Okay, looks like he's having some trouble. Okay, why don't we go ahead? We have limited time, but we need to capture from everyone what we are trying to do. So I will go over, some of you guys joined for the first time. I don't know if you have looked at the slides and all those. So everyone should have got the team set up by Miami-Dade County. So you log in there, and then we are going to upload all the documents. So I already uploaded the presentation slide, and not everything because I'm keep updating based on what I'm hearing from everyone. So I will do that today after this meeting. So everyone can see my slide, right?
Sunil, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear now. Yes, go ahead, Salil.
No, this is Salil. I just want to make sure you know
Right,
I'm
right.
here.
Yeah, can you briefly introduce Salil? Everyone introduce.
Oh, sure. Salil Karkar, DC Water. Hey, you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can hear you. Great. Okay. So the topic is, again, I mean, the title is not fixed. We just decided that we will have this, but we are calling it a summit. The reason we are calling it a summit is not to confuse with a lot of conference going on, workshop related with the water. So we are trying to do the future of the water summit. So we held a couple of meetings, and I will go over that, what we learned in that. So what is the overarching goal of this summit? More looking from top-down approach to develop a vision of one water, intelligent water, smart water, whatever we call it, and also call to action. That's a kind of a main is this kind of a movement, and some of those discussion came in our previous meetings. So that's the whole purpose of this. We also discussed the dates. So a couple of date was thrown. One is the Earth Day, that is April 22nd. Then also suggestion came, why don't we do Water Day? Because Earth Day, a lot of elected officials will be busy. Because this is, we are also targeting this not just technical part of it, engineering and technical, but also elected officials to come for this summit. And this will be by invitation. So we are targeting around 200. So location was also discussed, whether we should do in the capital DC or we do in the Miami. So after a lot of discussion in the first meeting, we decided that it's good to have the first in Miami because the synergy, sea level rise, climate change, we can tie that. And then it's not like this is the first and last summit. Then we will have a different location. Maybe then we can do DC once we have a better kind of and target the elected official or some of the water related caucus. So March 22nd, I talked to Hardeep yesterday. He will come at 1 o'clock. So Hardeep mentioned that March, he is thinking of having it in Key Biscayne, in that there is an island in South Florida. And he talked to some of the hotel there. They are booked on March 22nd. So he is thinking of moving to April 22nd. Again, he can come and talk. So if we are going in Miami, then we need to fix the date. So two things we haven't decided, but pretty much what feeling I got is for most of the members is that they are inclined towards having the first summit in Miami. And that time frame, March, April time frame. So that's what we discussed. The other is we also discussed is storyboard, because to run this summit, we need some kind of catchy things that what we are trying to achieve there, what will be the outcomes and all those. So it's a national global issues, it's critical and invisible infrastructure, multifaceted challenges, like those kind of things. So that's, we are still working on these because we need to prepare this before we start for fundraising and websites and all those kind of things. So Monday meeting, these are some of the topics. I took the note. All recordings, Kathy is going to put it there. She has already put it. So you can go and review those if you want. But these are some of the things came in the Monday meeting when we had the before Thanksgiving. A vision for one water and governance came, that what one water means many things to many people. So what is one water? Is it one, like one LA they call, so is it a utility? Or other is, what is the uniqueness and wow factor for this summit that we need to come up with? Then summit is, what summit is not for. So summit is not for, this is not we are going to discuss any technology or management or models or tools. This is more looking at the high level, the governance policy, and what need to change for water in 21st century. So top down, bottom up approach kind of a thing. So top down, the summit is more looking at top down, but bottom up is also important, like workforce and AI and all those kind of things. So they have to match that. Then how to engage all the stakeholder at the basin scale, because if we are trying to do this at the scale, which we are calling it river basin scale, also one water movement and life after summit. This summit is not a one-time thing that we do it and then just we go back. So we have to keep this momentum going. And how we do that and all those, that we need to think very carefully. Also, location and time of summit is key for the impact. And then marketing, outreach, engagements also is critical, right, as we go forward. So these are the topics. There are many things discussed, but this is what I got from. You can go and review the recordings also is there. Then Wednesday meeting we held, it came again, lot of discussion, kind of a very similar what we discussed on Monday, but some new things came. Instead of governance, maybe we should use a framework for one water implementation or integrated water implementation, because governance, people think that it's more control structure. Now we are trying to have a new agency, like those kind of discussion. Then the other is the summit should generate call to action, like a playbook, and also the 3-layer structure for collaboration. That's one thing came, that how this one water or whatever we are calling it, integrated water. So what will be the structure, like federal level, central level, then the middle, like basin, and then comes to the local. So how this new structure will look like. Again, it's not like the conversation came like, is it like we are trying to propose that there has to be a new federal agency, then there is a new kind of a control structure? No, that's why all the time is coming is any kind of a structure, or this has to be a collaboration coordination structure, not control structure. And that came very clearly in a lot of these discussion. And one water management, whether we call one water or whatever term we use, it need to be holistic. It cannot be like a lot of people that think one water like managing one thing, water rights, or from one aspect. So it has to be more holistic and looking at the more high level sustainability, resilience kind of a thing. Also develop blueprint for this implementation, what it will look like, what the path forward will look like, why a status quo is not going to work, and then building the momentum on this whole climate change and aging infrastructure. That also came, that we need to tie, because people are talking recently, they had this COP26 in Glasgow, a lot of discussion came regarding climate change, and then infrastructure bill has been passed. So that's kind of a lot of discussion. I also had a lot of individual meeting with other people who couldn't join. So these things came, and especially some of these came from the meeting yesterday I had with June Lopez. The title may be calling it politics of water, like it's all about people, money, and justice. Instead of, so we can discuss that. What keeps us getting to the future? How can we get there? What is the potential pathways? And fragmented also right now, most of these is a fragmented local water governance. Some are trying, I'm not saying everything is fragmented, like Delaware River Basin. Now Miami, South Florida, Hardeep has been appointed as a one water to coordinate. So there is effort is going on, but still majority of the water governance is fragmented. And urgency of the water challenges and outcome, that's we need to show that why this summit is important and timely. And leaders are afraid to challenge the status quo, and we need transformational change needed, and it's needed right now. So these are the things came that in this summit we can achieve, and there are many other things also. I'm not saying I have captured everything, but this is what I created. And then of course I just want to give you, some of you are joining for the first time, we still have to get few people in this committee. but we appointed the chair, co-chairs of this. We are now seeking help for working groups so that we can start working. And working group we decided to have in 4 themes right now, but again, as we go, some more themes can be added. But one is the themes and outcome, what we are looking for: logistics and invitee list, and partnership and fundraising, and then marketing, outreach, and website. And then of course Virginia Tech will definitely support. John is here, Kathy is here, Steve McKnight. So there's a big team from here who's going to support throughout this process. And this, I will not go over committee expectation. This can change a little bit based on the flavor. We haven't reached out to any of our partners yet. Again, this need to be updated. A lot of these are not there. So we need to make sure that we are inclusive. We are not trying to do something which other feel they were left alone, because all of these organizations, institutes, some way or other, they are working in the water related stuff, whether Internet of Water, smart water, or whatever term they use. Also, we said that invitee list is important, because this summit, what we are going to host will be by invitation. So we are not going to make it open, otherwise it's difficult. So especially the first one, we are definitely going to try to have by invitation list. And we also planned that we will have around 200. That's, again, that number can change based on what this committee decides. But these were the things discussed that we should call. Now senators, House representative may change a little bit based on location. If we are doing in Miami, then probably we have to rely on the local there. But these are the things we need to discuss there. The other also, we discussed that I'm in discussion with PBS, and I developed this documentary when I was at Penn State, Liquid Asset. It came in all PBS. It has a huge impact, as you can see here. At that time, a lot of committees and all those in Senate committee, House committee, they wrote the letters also for everyone to watch. It came in all PBS. It also has a huge impact, not just in US, but in other countries. I visited Australia. They were talking about this documentary. So I feel that I need support from this committee also as we go forward for the new documentary, which we are calling it, whether we call the future of water or whatever term we use. And they will definitely be attending this summit. So that the workshop we are having, I just want to bring that up. Next week we have this from December 6 to 9. A lot of things will be talked there also. It's related. I will not say this workshop and conference is not related, but there's no, I don't think we have any panel or anything to talk. We have governance, one panel to talk governance, but not all about policy and all those. So, but this can be this. So now, this is what we discussed all in the previous. So I will stop there. And then based on that, I did a lot of reading, because a lot of discussion came is what is water governance. So I looked at a lot of papers, and I will upload. I haven't uploaded, but I will upload in the team site a lot of materials. So whatever we are talking is not new. People have tried at the basin scale and all those. So I tried to put it all also in US, some of the going on. I also tried to put some of the from different literature. Why do transboundary basin matters, and to get the big picture, and what are the challenges. So this slide I will go fast, but I tried to, based on the discussion, I tried to put from a lot of literatures, and which I will upload definitely. Water diplomacy, then technology, how that is going to change, what makes water governance effective, river basin scale challenges, but crucial steps. And I also tried to build some of, based on different literature, what are the building blocks for if we are going in this direction. Last time we had a lot of discussion that what should be a good building blocks. Again, these are not final. These are all based on the different literature. What are the major steps for implementation from initial stage to final stage? These are all, I haven't put the references here, but all references are there. I will upload all those references. Also, I tried to look into this whole cooperation, collaboration, coordination, and control, because this is, I'm seeing is coming a lot, that if we are trying to create a new kind of structure, Is it a control structure? No, it's not. That we need to be very, very clear, because we don't want people to really get that, oh, this summit is basically they're promoting the agenda for that. So that then problem with the previous effort, I read, still I haven't finished. There's a lot of literature. Why previous effort failed? When I say the previous effort, these are all related with the river basin scale. People have tried in different countries and all those. So that, and then I feel that a lot of these digital technology is going to help this make it happen. Again, I'm still putting my thoughts together, but I just wanted to show you this, and I will upload these slides. And top down, bottom up approach is important. We need both to really to be this successful. So that's what I feel. And then of course I put some of the NSF, what we are planning to do, how it will help and how it will be successful if we do it in the right way. So that's kind of and call to action. Okay, so I will stop here. I gave you, I know there's a lot of information. I didn't wanted to present this. I wanted to more brainstorming, but this is what we discussed in our previous meetings. So I will open now for more input and discussion that how we go forward. Of course, we need to decide the date and location, but location, I believe everyone agreed to be Miami, first one.
So Sunil, this is you. I think the only thing I'd say is that I think a possible title of The Politics of Water could be problematic, because I feel like that will get us into a perception of what we're trying to do that really leads us down a wrong pathway. Really what we're looking on here is what is creating a sustainability model, right? So I think in framing this in that sense, and really framing sustainability as being really a collaborative effort that needs that scale, right? At that basin scale is really how it would work. I know for us at WSSC Water, same for Salil, we have our regional cooperative oversight body, which manages or portion of the Potomac River Basin, which we all really go off. So I think that certainly there are models that we're looking on, but I think what we're really trying to hear is that with the persistent changes from climate change and everything else that's really there, and the connectivity of the entire watershed, right? That we really need to look on this at a larger scale. So I think if we frame this around the fact of what is a sustainable water future, right? And we can still have it as really the people, the money, and I would say the equity instead of justice, right?
Equity, right. Okay.
I think certainly that would give a proper connotation that not only frames the technical aspect of what we're trying to do, right? But tactically get us into the right conversation. Because even though we're having a lot of people from the political sphere, which is relevant because they have control and influence over our source control and hence and otherwise, the more important part of this is really trying to establish a framework in which we can say we can create a new collaborative or co-op, right? That creates a sustainable platform for all of us, right? And certainly out west, they've learned how to do and are still trying to learn to do that for many years because it was more necessary, but certainly also everywhere else in the country, it's now necessary.
Right. Yeah, I saw that June, you raised a lot of.
Yes, thank you. And I mean, Hugh makes really great points. And I wanted to kind of give maybe a little bit of background of why when I had the conversation with Sunil, we talked about the politics of water. But, to Hugh's point, and obviously others in this whole group, I'll defer to what the group wants. This is a national scale conversation. But where I was coming from in talking with Sunil, Hugh, was, when you look at water, it's different in different parts of the country. And I think that, California, we've got a lot of problems. We have some reference points of data that's really not something we're proud of. Million Californians not having access to safe drinking water. We have over 7,000 different systems, and over 300 are constantly failing by the state's categorization, and over 600 is on the brink of failure. And during the pandemic and all the crisis that we've seen in 2020, we've seen a very disparity of impact, especially for vulnerable communities, people of color. And so I think the whole issue has been elevated is that why can't we do better? And it really comes down to because water is very political. And we talk around it. And there's a lot of conversations about smart water, sustainability, one water. But really the core of the issue, at least from my limited experience in California, is really based on just the lack of political will, public acceptance, and the appropriate allocation of money, because you can't just throw money at the problem. You have to have the right structure in which that money is coming from, as well as having sufficient money. And so this conversation, as Sunil said, is, we want the wow factor, we want something different. And I thought, yes, it's a bit provocative and it can turn some people off, but I do think people might be interested and say, what are they going to talk about? And how is this sounds really different than some of the other conferences and summit that we've had. And the equity is a word that I use a lot. The reason I threw in justice is because, believe it or not, when I talk about equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, people say, well, what do you mean by equity? And, is it equitable distribution of money? Is it equity in terms of racial equity? There's like all these questions that I think is quite interesting. And I would say it's about justice. It's about doing the right thing for the people that we serve, not just in the communities that we have, but it's just doing right by people. So that's kind of where that came from. But the origin of that, as you said, is equity. And I think it's kind of sometimes a little sad when you have to explain to people what equity means. So just wanted to give the group a little bit of sort of the background on that, and clearly open to changing and modifying it, all of that. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Pierre?
Yeah, thanks, Sunil. So I agree with the comments so far, and I just say that I think think about the what is it that impedes coordination and collaboration across these different water governance entities and water governance levels. And the reality is there's two things, I think. First, we live in what Herbert Simon is called an attention economy, right? And so generally speaking, any organization is going to try to focus on its needs and what it needs to do, and that by itself often impedes collaboration and coordination. And then it also derives various governance entities also derive some type of power by not necessarily sharing, right? And so so there's at least two different factors there that impede coordination and collaboration. And so you could think about, how do we get, greater collaboration and coordination? I think, actually having, there's at least two things. One is if we can show that, it makes sense economically to do that, to have better sharing, if we and transparency, and if we can also get kind of the will of the people, right, to help with the politics, basically to encourage that transparency that's needed. And fundamentally, I think I understand the need for top down, but I also think that there's a big need for bottom up, because politicians pay attention to the folks who might or might not reelect them, and so getting the public to educate themselves and not have water as some invisible entity, right? I think is critical.
Great. Salil, you raised your hand.
I did. Um, all great discussions here, wonderful topics. It just seems like we might be diluting this out a little bit because there's just so many places you can go with water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is in Miami. The primary attendees, sorry, June, are going to be from the East Coast, primarily, maybe Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to interest them is very different than the western part of the country, where there's a dearth of water. On the eastern part of the country, what we're dealing with is excessive amounts of water, flooding, high intensity, low rainfalls. Miami itself is dealing with its own special challenges, as a few other coastal cities. I think we need to pick a topic that's going to capture the interest of the attendees. And I do know this is a topic that covers not only the eastern part of the US, but the entire US and the entire world. But in the end, we got to be practical as whether the attendees can we hold their interest. There's a lot to be said about the least among us being the hurt the most. So equity is certainly an issue. It's an important one to talk about. It doesn't pull people into conferences. So we got to balance it with something else that be interest to them.
Right. Sorry, let me add on that. We are not trying, that's why the reason we got out, we are already having a swim conference in December to tackle. This is what in the beginning, the slide we said, this is more like a movement kind of a things. We are not trying to solve anything in this summit or going to talk at technology which can help utility to do better asset management. That's not a purpose. The purpose of this summit right from is to look into what the water in 21st century will look like, more a high level vision then again, I mean, as it grows, then of course we have to talk about bottom up. We need a platform or we need some new sensors. But the whole purpose of this summit is to discuss what the framework will look like, a governance at the basin scale, not looking at what utility does right now.
Mm-hmm. But it's a little different, right?
Mm-hmm.
California would be looking at maybe desalination.
I agree, yes. But if we frame this as a water, just like you mentioned, here water is creating a problem, whether you have no water or more water, right? So if we frame this as a sustainability and resilience, then it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So
right?
The answer is how do we live with this? How do we coexist with the changing climate?
Right, exactly, and also aging infrastructure. So how maybe the current way of functioning is not efficient way. Incremental, like we are trying to develop technology, the AWWA, water RF, we are coming with the project. We are trying to develop a new kind of a framework or algorithm, how to collect data or use new sensors. But that is, I feel, is like in medical, they say bleeding put a band-aid. So here we need to look into transformational change because the vision of the water, I think Hugh mentioned in one of the swim board meeting that vision of the water is 100-year-old. And I will give you one example, what motivated me actually in the first place to talk about this. We are doing one project with Water Research Foundation. How much money we have? 350K to develop intelligent water framework. Can you believe that the Department of Transportation, they have spent $11 billion to develop intelligent transportation framework? So
We're just
why?
more efficient, Neil.
No, I mean, every time when it comes to water, we are so cheap. Like all these volunteer AWWA, this and that. There is no federal agency. I had this discussion with NIST. The NIST said that, Sunil, why NIST is not working big time? I mean, Steve is here. So NIST, I had this discussion. NIST works in, they developed this framework because there's no champion. EPA, we all the time think EPA is not. They are regulatory body. They are not buddies who will sit on the table and who will say that, just like Department of Energy, they are pushing a lot of money in this whole developing a smart electric grid. All framework and everything has been developed based on billions of dollar funding. So I don't think the current structure is working in US.
I agree, Sunil. I think really we have to make the fundamental decision around the fact that the current water model, and it's not only when our infrastructure, how it was developed, or source water management, or projection as to how we develop a water feature is 100 years old, right? It was based around the modernization of most of our urban areas, which really brought into place the now existing water infrastructure. And since then, at a large scale, we've never really envisioned what a water future is. 20 years ago, the big conversation was around fossil fuels and the sustainability of our society around finding alternative ways of energy, because we know that that was a depleting resource. Now, really what we're saying is that our focus really now is around water, the most essential resource. And how do we create a framework and a model that actually allows us to have a sustainable society going forward, where water has various challenges. Yes, out west, it's a scarcity issue. For us, it's really a situation of fluctuation in terms of not only availability, but quality, right? And the destructive nature of that. But it still comes down to the fact that we still do not have what is an agreeable model as to how do we create a water future that's fit for the new century, because what we're working with is from the last century.
Right.
So adding
Go
to
ahead.
Hugh's comment, are we then talking about looking in the future as to what the different elements of the water business would look like?
Yes, I think that what we should, the summit should, and that's what the title we put, the future of water, not what existing going on and how to improve the existing structure. I think we need to look into not incremental, but transformational change.
Yeah, Sunil, Pierre brought up a really good point of the will of the people. And for watershed collaboration to happen, it's going to require obviously every agency within that watershed to cooperate together. But they're only going to do that if they put together the right case for their communities to do that participation. So the utilities have to do a better job in translating what they're talking about. When you talk about lower rates or less sewer overflows, that doesn't really mean much to the community. Let's talk about how it's going to help their economies grow. Let's talk about how it's going to provide more lower the poorer communities with water. Let's talk about how the environment's going to improve for recreational activities and fisheries. So something that they're going to be able to actually understand and do a better translating what we see as our goals from a utility perspective into what the community feels is really going to provide them the value to support the activity.
Right.
I agree with you, Ken. One of the major challenges water has had is that it's not had a coherent vision, right? Even when you look on the current infrastructure bill, it was all focused around what was deficiencies in the infrastructure, lead pipe replacement, but really lead pipe is really one challenge of our major challenges that water has. And with this historic investment, my concern is that we're pivoting from a focus from where we really need to talk about how do we create or change or evolve into what would be a sustainable water future versus just trying to patchwork fix the existing 100-year-old model, right? That's the real problem we have here. We've really run the life cycle of what is the existing model, right? And I think we really now need to start pivoting, just as they did with fossil fuels, right? To what is a more future model.
Right.
Yeah, I agree here.
Hugh, exactly. That's what my thinking also, that the example you brought, fossil fuel, is exactly like that. We cannot keep improving that engine. No, we need to think totally different.
100% agree. I think we're at that pivot point now.
Okay, what about others? I mean, lot others have also joined now, I believe. And I'm looking at the chat, so there's a lot of L has left, but he put a lot of thoughts here in the chat box.
I think Pierre has his hand up.
Oh, Pierre, go ahead, Pierre.
Yeah, so Neil, you know, the issue of exciting people and getting them to come and so forth, and to be engaged and to have a transformation, you know, think about water transformation. I think it's great. And thinking about the future rather than, you know, in a new way, rather than just, you know, incremental fixes, such as Hugh said. But I guess my question really, so this is an open question: how do we get that that excitement about the future if we don't talk about, like, you know, technology and things like that, right? We kind of said, well, this is not, you know, not going to be a summit about technology, but how are you going to generate excitement, you know, without bringing that in? You know, maybe there are some other ways to do that. I'm not saying there aren't, but I think that's really important to talk about.
No, I agree. I agree with you, and that's what when I was writing this slide, top-down, bottom-up approach. First, we need I feel the top-down approach is we need to think harder. What this structure, if we are calling it basin scale, just by saying basin scale, it's not. It has to be a structure, a centralized kind of national level, then 18 basin level, then coming down to the local level. So those kind of things. Then the whole thing is, then we need to bring in bottom up is all the technology and all those, because I feel technology is going to be a change here, enabler. Without why it failed. I read a lot of, I'm not claiming I read everything, but I have read a lot of articles why it failed. Why previous, there are a lot of efforts. It's not like this is the first time we are thinking about basin scale management. Even in US, Delaware River Basin Commission is created, now Colorado Compact. So a lot of these is, I feel, if you carefully look at most of these failed is because the data sharing was not there, transparency was not there. I mean, those are the things we are talking. So if we can bring as a technology, and with the 21st century, how social media and all those, that may be a game changer. And this may work.
Yeah, so I think you know, it was at the Monday meeting. You know, I think Anand had brought up the idea of you know, sharing databases, creating, you know, creating knowledge base fundamentally, right?
Right.
Okay, so you know, that's something that, you know, could maybe generate excitement, especially if we can you know, create some links. And, you know, kind of showcase the links was like an improved economy, you know, right? You know, what would be the societal benefits in terms that people can understand and anyone can understand, right? So
yeah, I mean, without benefits, I mean, that's the key is what is the current status? I mean, the status quo, and what will happen if we implement this new vision? That need to be somehow, I think I have written somewhere, that need to be shown. Transformational change, and that we need to show. We don't want, I mean, change can be bad also, right? I mean, so change is not, we don't want to make a change which is not going to improve the economy or quality of life. So if somehow we can showcase or demonstrate that why we feel Again, I mean, think in this way. When this social network and all those, when they were coming, people thought that no, this may not work, or they were scared. But now everyone uses Facebook, WhatsApp all over the world. So they changed the culture by technology. They pretty much changed the culture.
And that's because people saw the benefits pretty soon, right? And then actually contributed, right?
Right, exactly.
I think about Wikipedia, for example, has a knowledge base, right?
Right.
Sunil, this is Hardeep. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm joining in from actually Orlando at the AWW conference. I was listening into the excellent comments and conversations, and I just wanted to share a few thoughts along the same lines in terms of the future, just to stir the pot a bit, if I may. I think before we even start of the future, obviously we want to learn from the lessons from the past, because that's important. And until you know the lessons from the past, you really cannot fix the present, and you really cannot model the future, right? Because I think that's the golden thread: the past, the present, and the future. So it's important to know what has not worked in the past, and what is working in the present. And I think where I'm going with that is, one of the gaps I see from, and I'll only speak for myself as a utility person, is I think we first need to do a better job between us to share successes better. Like, what is working at the moment? For example, if we are talking about the watershed, what are existing frameworks and blueprints that exist, not just in the United States, but maybe around the world for that matter, right? And there are a few, probably 2 or 3 of these frameworks exist, and within those existing frameworks, if there are some successes, then how do you adapt it to become inclusive along the lines of the One Water conversation, which he's been talking about, and Salil mentioned a few points. If we get that going, then the question is there a framework for the US that can apply to utilities on the East, on the West, or anywhere in the US, right? Because it all boils down to the shocks and stresses. Shocks and stresses in Miami might be different from the shocks and stresses in California. And the reason I bring this up is, if we are not united in some sort of a blueprint, a framework, then this conversation about a movement, we are calling it a one water movement. I've started doing that here in Miami, is going to be an uphill battle always, because we ultimately have to connect these conversations to A, the communities we serve, and B, the policymakers and the elected officials, and that pool of people is transient. The policymakers, elected officials are a transient pool, right from the federal level all the way down to the local level. And I mean that with all due respect. So we are a constant pool, somewhat, we keep moving maybe, from one utility to the other, but we are water professionals at the core, right? So we will continue to do these conversations, whether I'm at Miami-Dade or tomorrow I work with a nonprofit or go to an institution, whatever. So we have a constant K in terms of our conversations. The community has a constant in terms of the expectations and the shocks and stresses they face. The variable is the policymakers. And those variables are the ones that are the most important. They are the ones who are the ones we should be addressing with some sort of a unification coming from our group of people that we are talking here, right? So that's what I wanted to kind of highlight is, A, how do we go out and bring to the forefront a blueprint that sticks in a unified manner for utilities around this country, at least. And then B, we need to make sure that we connect at all times in some sort of a unified fashion to this group of policymakers, because the group of policymakers are hearing from N number of associations. the N number of associations bring N dimensions of conversations, depending on what they are representing, without going into the details. So if we are really looking at an approach for the future, that blueprint will only come if we are able to do something radically different, disruptive on our front. And I'll stop there, because that's a challenge I see from my vantage point.
Salil, you raised hand. Salil is there.
I did.
Go ahead, Salil.
Pradeep, good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
So we're looking at water and we're looking at future. Are we looking at a time step that's maybe 30, 40, 50 years out? Are we looking at a transition to there?
Yeah, that's a good point, Salil. That these are the things we need. It has to be, because any pathway, you cannot say it will take 100 years. Then people, what is the low-hanging fruit? What can be done in 5 years, 10 years? Short term. I mean, again, I'm going back to NSF. NSF defines as a short term, which is like a 3-year time frame. Then mid-term, which is 3 to 7 years, and then beyond that is a long-term goal.
So for one thing, I know things got to end up, and I'll make a quick point here. One thing we're dealing with in DC, and I know other cities are also, is we have to change how we construct urban settings so that you don't have runoff that hits your sewer lines right away. So it's the blue-green infrastructure concept just has to be built into city architecture from here on out. So that's something in the future. So that's just one aspect of how things are going to change in the future.
Right.
But Ting, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, Ting, you have raised your hand.
Thank you, Salil. Good to hear all these comments. Yeah, so I was also thinking about, we're all water professionals and very excited and passionate about what we are talking about. I'm thinking a little bit more when we do this, the Future of Water Summit. What about inviting some of our partners, like NGOs or others who could advocate for us? I think that's going to having a stronger voice besides what we are talking about, and like parks or other, you probably already have this, Sunil. So I'm just thinking about more adding the voice besides the professionals, the water professionals here.
Sure. That we discussed with Hardeep, and I discussed that we don't want to bring all the same crowd. What we are trying to bring in the swim conference, consultant, technology provider, academic. Here we need to bring all other stakeholders. Otherwise, we are not going to achieve anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I just also want to add on, I think when sometimes we get to the East versus West, and I have been in Cincinnati, the Midwest, and familiar with the CSO and all the water quality issues, and now I'm in Oregon. So the first day at my work, and I heard is water rights and all the Western water law. So I do think there is a change. I do see the overarching outcomes are the same. It's environmental, social, economic benefit, and then once we translate that overarching outcomes to individual state or basins, that might be a little bit different. But I think that's probably also Hardeep was talking about. We need to unite at the front and talk about what we are trying to communicate. And I also see this as a part is the co-creating that vision together. Right. The city, they all have their own probably thoughts and agendas as well. So how can we pitch this into a way that is also part of what they are trying to do, the future of city, the smart city, and all that angles, and put the technology as part of that. Yeah, that's all.
Sure. Thanks, Ting. Hugh, you raised hand.
Yeah, I just want to, I think what we're really, if we get down to the core of it, and I think, Hardeep kind of put it in there, what we're really talking about here is a national focus on water being the essential resource to create a sustainable future, right? I think what we have right now on a national scale is the EPA which was created 50 years ago, was really about, at the time, an abundant resource that only needed compliance for pollution control, right? Since then, what we're seeing now is that water in itself is parallel to energy, right? Where there was a national focus on energy being a resource that was there to create what is a national security concern and a sustainability concern. And what we're saying at this point now is that water needs to be elevated to that platform. Let's transform from compliance, right, to this really taking its place. So whether that's really at a national scale, which then trickles down for this to really move the EPA from compliance to really, you know, as you've said before, Sunil, Department of Water or whatever else is necessary, right? Because
yeah,
at this point,
I
really
mean, I got pushed back, so I'm not using that word anymore.
Well, I mean, whatever it is, what we're saying is that from a local, state, and federal, we're saying we need to move water from a compliance standpoint.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. No,
Into
I 100%.
what is a sustainable, critical resource, right?
Right.
And then plan the structures and the water future.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what discussion I had when NSF, they are going to change NSF, the National Science Foundation. Now they are going to use National Science and Technology Foundation because they are realizing that the whole component of technology implementation is important. Why can't we have the same discussion, the change EPA, keep compliance, there's no problem, but bring a department who can help become a buddy of to work with utilities, not just as a cop.
You know, I agree. And we certainly see that through the infrastructure program. I know that myself and many others were lobbying for the fact that we needed to move this focus only away from lead pipe. Yes, that is an important issue, but then because of the EPA's framework as being about compliance, it was really focused on pollution control. A lot of this investment has no frame of reference as to how we're going to improve the infrastructure, make it more resilient, more ready for the future.
Yeah, the problem with EPA is, I hope Jim Horn is not here from EPA. EPA, most of the people I talk to EPA, they have a rear view vision, I will tell you that. It's not forward looking vision. They are only looking into Clean Water Act, which was passed, and water as a source. That's it.
Yeah. So we had the national transformation around energy. We now need the national transformation around water, right?
I think so.
That's really what we're asking for.
Hardeep, yeah, go ahead, Hardeep.
Sunil, you know, the other thought that's coming is, I totally agree. Yes, there needs to be a national model, right? And yeah, the EPA plays catch up in many ways. You know, they are, I think, an important organization from a standpoint of regulations and enforcement and compliance. Case in point, they're talking about, lead and copper, maybe rear view vision, PFAS, maybe forward thinking in terms of, okay, they're trying to do something from a regulatory standpoint. Then the question is, how are utilities really being agile and being adaptive in terms of what's coming down the pike in terms of, let's say, future regulations? That changing landscape introduces another stress or a shock, right? Because all of a sudden it adds cost to doing business when you have to start retrofitting your treatment systems to comply with some regulatory landscape. I think the conversation of really pushing the agenda in terms of saying, yes, you need some sort of a national equivalent, for water. I think it'll come, but I think it is going to be a function of how well we get aligned. And what kind of a unification of the voice, I keep saying that, exists, both at grassroots local levels across the 50 states, if possible, but also the support of local elected officials so that individual states can then start lobbying for that kind of an approach, right? And there's graduation steps to this process. It's not going to happen overnight. Where I'm trying to also go is, in order for that to happen, we just finished COP26 in Glasgow, and I was presenting maybe at 3 or 4 different pavilions there. And for the first time, Glasgow had a water pavilion, right? And there's some sort of a indirect reference in the most recent, in the IPCC draft report that exists. At least for the first time, there's some sort of a connection that is being made, right? Directly or indirectly. the reason I bring this up is if there's so much conversation happening at Glasgow and COP26 and the UN SDGs, I would go on a limb and say that the work that we do has to get connected to these SDGs. Again, I take it back to that framework, because we cannot be talking about net zero 2030 and 2050 in water utilities, and then consciously our dollars being spent connected to the community, and then ultimately alignment with some sort of an SDG to say, well, this is where we are going. Because when you constantly connect that upward of you with these national, international conversations, the optics becomes different, versus we constantly connect with aging infrastructure. Our grade is a D- or a C+, and some abstract conversations that really don't make any sense, because the community doesn't have the appetite, the time, or the knowledge to go down and drill down to say, hey, what was it at D+ and now it is a C-? What the heck does that mean? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it great? Right? And if we are confused, and actually I'm stealing Debbie's words here, as water professionals, if we are confused here, think about how confused are the community we serve and how confused are the elected officials. So I keep going back to that, and I'll keep harping on that until and unless we have to take the next 3 steps first. What are the next 3 foundational structural steps that we need to take, and keep it simple first, because this is the first of its kind. If we come to a consensus to say we are going to leave this with 3 structural steps, and then future summits or offline work through committees or like-minded people banding together will work on the structural elements, whether it's a petition drive, whether it is activism, whether it is moving the One Water movement, whether it's creating a framework for measurement. And along all of those lines, like Ting said, Ting, by the way, public apology to you for not being able to connect. I will reach out to you, but it was nice hearing you. She said it right. Technology people, partners, NGOs, Water Research Foundation, all of these folks will have to come and support all of these initiatives. So we are then at the forefront of something that the optics means and looks that we are united. And so I wanted to kind of make that point, that it's important for us to think kind of realistically as well.
Right. June raised hand, and then Pierre.
Yes. And I have to leave after this comment. So I appreciate all the conversations, very thought-provoking. Regardless of what part of the country we serve in, one thing we all have in common are the people, and people aren't that different no matter where they're at. Even the politics isn't that different. And I think it's important to understand that's the underlying problem, because as you said, Sunil, it's not like we don't have the ideas and the projects, but why can't we move forward in the way that we need to? What is the barrier? And it is people in the politics, the power struggle, the 19th century policies and laws that govern today, like one of the speakers said. So there are a lot of things, especially if we're targeting the elected officials and decision makers with this summit. What can they do? What are the takeaways? Because as others said, there's so many directions we can go. And this isn't about the technical. This isn't about getting them to understand the watersheds. This is about what they can do immediately. And they really, for me, as I listen to this, comes down to 3 things, which is there needs to be a question of the structure of how water is managed and moved around. And I imagine regardless of which part of the country, that there is that opportunity for improvement. It could be restructuring, comprehensive consolidation, whatever it may be. But there is a structural problem with how water is managed. And the other part is data. And you and I talked about this a little bit the other day. I mean, some big agencies are really good with data, but when you look across the board, it's not good. And it's not even good data with the good tools. A lot of the approaches are outdated. And we need to open our doors to the people who have it better. We need to have an Amazon state of mind. We need to evolve and say, we need different partners outside of our own universe to bring these tools into our lives to make better decisions that also equates the right investment. So data and really understanding the kinds of modernized tools and ways of doing business, it doesn't tie in technology in the granular way, but it really makes people think about how do you push that technology bar without getting into the weeds, which is to demand answers and demand collaboration. And I think that word demand is important because as legislators, they can do that. They can apply the pressures as well as incentives to move us faster than perhaps we're accustomed to moving. And the last of the three takeaways for me is the right way of investing, not just throwing money, not just asking for money, but how do we structure this? And that opens up the conversation of, do we need a national body that is like the Department of Energy or Transportation? Or do we need to, or maybe it's both, a combination, a variety of strategies to make sure the money is invested where it's needed, in the time that it's needed, and is done with equity in mind? Because the big agencies that have the wherewithal, they get what they need faster than the smaller agencies that are serving the underrepresented communities. And that I see as a constant problem throughout the state, because when you go after, whether it's a FEMA funding or other grant funding, you have to have the resources to even go for money. And so a lot of these small agencies don't even try. So just like the kind of get the focus into perhaps where it can go. I just wanted to offer that up, but I apologize. I have to run, but certainly Sunil, please reach out if there's anything.
Thanks, June. You really summarized. I took the note and we are recording. It's really good. What you summarize, I really liked it.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, somebody else raised the hand, right?
I did.
Peer, go ahead.
Yep. So, I want to follow up also on what Hardeep said, and so I personally totally believe in having trying to go for a unified approach, aligning with whatever we do with the SDGs. I believe in that. However, I also know that there's a lot of folks in the United States, including politicians, who had very bad reactions to, for example, Agenda 21 when it came out, and or who talked about the states or their local entities being centers to try out new things and so forth, right? And so I think there's a balance there in terms of, first of all, not being overbearing in terms of how we coordinate, especially when it comes to questions of structure that June just mentioned. I think we need to. I totally, I like the idea of sharing data. Saying we need to have consistency. Have the proper metadata, create knowledge bases, have a framework for doing this. Absolutely. We also need to, kind of, I think, explicitly give, some room for, to account for the differences between different water situations in different places. And the possibilities of innovations coming from different localities and so forth, right? So it's about sharing. It's not about control, like you said.
No. That's one thing, Peter, I learned. I'm reading a lot of, and I think I have made one slide. Cooperation, collaboration, coordination, not control, not to be used that word.
Yeah, and so anyway, that I just wanted to share this fear that I have that we might be seen as being overbearing, right?
Right. Hardeep, go ahead.
So Sunil, falling back on Pierre's conversation, comment. For what it is worth, the United States contributes to the United Nations, to the World Bank, to the World Health. And all of these organizations, in turn, contribute to the poor developing nations, right? In terms of sanitation, in terms of hygiene, in terms of water and poverty and food security, and name it. And each of those, again, accountability from these organizations is what? The SDGs. So, you know, our policymakers, our elected officials, of course we are fractured, of course we are fragmented. And that is the work we need to do, because I think it's also incumbent on people like us to hold our policymakers, our elected officials accountable. I might get in trouble for saying that, but it's a hard fact. And underlining all of this is data, because then data becomes the medium where transparency exists. Data becomes the medium where trust exists and integrity exists, to say, well, this data that is coming is reliable. It has trust and integrity behind it, and therefore I can fall behind it. And that's where the community comes in. So that language of connecting the conversations, and holding accountability on the elected official side, and getting our consumers to rally behind the work we do, so that the funding comes in, the rate increases come in, the equity comes in, is all then connected to data, but good data. Otherwise, we're
right. And also, I have written, Hardeep, one slide. I will share this after this meeting. That artificial intelligence cyber infrastructure platform, which is basically a data handling, that will be enabling, because one slide I have written why previous attempts have been failed. Or not failed, but it's not very successful, mainly because what you are saying is data.
Yeah, and of course, you know, we all agree that we don't want this to be a technology conference where
no, we don't. But still, we need to talk about what is the disruptive. We are talking about, as you said, disruptive. So what will technology will do? I think other people have raised hand. Hugh, go ahead first.
So I think really what we're boiling down to here is that the impetus or the need is really to frame the problem, right? There's a disparate nature right here where we're seeing a lot of cause and effect, but no connecting the dots in terms of all of this is really a holistic water issue, right? Whether it is the issues that we're seeing on the East Coast in terms of those climate change effects, whether it is sea level rise and everything else that's being experienced in Miami and other places, whether it's water scarcity or otherwise elsewhere. But I think what we generally have on there, why there hasn't been a groundswell of support, is because we haven't created a storyboard or a narrative that connects the dots with everything that's happening as a general water issue. While we may have said one water, nobody knows what one water means, right? And I think we really need to frame that in its current context in terms of the challenges we face now, but also the challenges we'll face going forward. And that's where you'll have the COP26 and everything else that's really happening. And that's the essential part of what we need to do. And that's really the discussion, that's really the conversation that has never happened, connecting the dots around why water is not only a current, but a future prevailing risk that we really need to get together and find a solution as to how do we create and keep this, because like it or not, if it is from a national scale, whoever creates and develops a sustainable water model is really who's going to dominate the next century, as it was the commitment back 100 years ago with general infrastructure and technology from 30 and 40 years ago. Water is now that challenge. That's now the paradigm that's now the element that we need to conquer by creating what is a holistic plan. But the first issue is the fact that we need to frame the problem. And that's because a lot of it here is contextualized by where you live, and even by where you live, for a lot of people, they don't have the context of it being a water related issue, right? And I think that's really what we're talking about here, to generate and facilitate that national conversation as to why water, right? And why it's that important. What is the issues behind it? Create that consensus, because without that consensus, there will be no momentum afterwards.
Right. I agree. Okay, Ken.
Yeah, I hear a lot about, we need to hold politicians accountable. I think we also need to help guide their opinions. But more importantly, we also have to keep ourselves accountable. we talked about the fact that there's a lot of emphasis on lead and infrastructure funding, but that's because we failed. We as a water industry knew about lead and copper since the early 1990s. Millions of dollars of research work was done on that, and some utilities decided to ignore it. And what happens 20 years later is that it blows up. It becomes a national issue. All the politicians jump on it because it's popular. So there's sort of a level of trust we have to have in our own agencies. Everybody is going to be doing it right. And not create these problems where all of a sudden the whole water issue is distracted by a single point like lead.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else? Let me check. Okay. Any Steve microphone is not working, so but he has put his comments there. Anyone else? Debbie, you have also put. So Debbie, anything you want to add here? Because we are also recording. Again, all will be available to everyone.
Yeah, sure. So I hear the same things coming up and again, kind of stated different ways by different people, but I think you're coming to some main themes, which is collaborative water management. What does that look like? Data sharing, and also sort of that knowledge or technology for future, right? How is water? So I think you're kind of coalescing on some main themes, and those are actually the main actions that came out of what we did in Miami-Dade County through our assessment. So I think it's good. But the one comment I have is like, we also need to make it very relatable, because some of the folks who are interested in participating are not living the water conversation every day. And One Water is, we're having trouble getting past what's the purpose and the theme. And so I think we need to, at some point, once we decide on the goals and the themes, we need to simplify it for people, or invite people to kind of identify their piece or their drop or their part in One Water, right? We need to look at it as One Water, but we need to break it down, I think, in order to define it. So, you have people in stormwater or other areas of focus that are not going to relate to an academic discussion of One Water management.
Right. No, I agree with that. Yeah. Thanks, Debbie. Let me see here. Other people are here. I know Steve microphone is not working. So let me.
Sorry, somehow I couldn't raise my hand on the Zooms.
Oh, okay.
This is from
yeah, go ahead, Fengo. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I really like the idea of One Water. I completely agree, with the concept of integrated water management.
Right.
I've been with water treatment for many years, and so I like to share just one view from bottom view of the importance of integrated water management. We're wastewater treatment plant, so we. For the Steve example, City of Chicago, City of Chicago managing the drinking water system. We MWRD, we manage the sewer, the wastewater treatment and stormwater system. So the City of Chicago using ferric for their water treatment process, they discharge their waste to our sewer system, which actually help us for the phosphorus removal, because there are residual chemicals, ferric chemicals in their waste. It helps the phosphorus removal. But when they evaluate their chemical selection for their treatment process, they probably wouldn't consider this additional benefit, right? And for us, if they change the chemicals, we probably wouldn't know until we see reduced phosphorus performance. And this is like a two independent entity. They don't talk, they don't talk with each other that often as needed. But if you have integrated water management system, sharing the data or decision-making process, it could really help. I completely agree with that.
Okay, great. So with the time, we have 10 minutes left. So Hardeep, you are still here?
Yes.
Okay, so no, what's the next step? Because today we wanted, I mean, I wanted brainstorming also because it's very important, but we need to, as we move forward, we need to decide date and location. I believe location, everyone is agreeing for the first one, Miami, but we need to get the date.
Right. So March 22nd, the location that I was proposing is, first of all, it's right around the corner. It's
right.
We want to do it right. So it sounds like a very tough proposition. Besides, the location that I wanted to kind of propose was on the water to kind of make it more thematic and dramatic at the same time.
Right.
That has been completely booked. So I can go and look for another date. The next good date would be Earth Day, which is April. It gives us another 30 more days. So it'll be 5 months from now, right? Which is in April.
Right.
But if it's not April, it could be anything else between, it could even be World War, the 50th anniversary, I think someone put in the chat,
right.
in October, right? It could be 50 years of celebration of, I think Ting mentioned it. We could
but I don't know whether that Clean Water Act is a Clean Water Act, right?
I'm just saying we can find another reason, whatever. We can always
so why can't right now we go with April 22nd, Hardeep, if you...
I'm okay with it. If we can quickly poll. Here's what I'll do. I will reach out now and find out. I think we are looking at a 2-day at least, because 1 day is not going to
No, we are looking for 2 days. Yeah, that came out very clearly in previous discussion.
Right. I will reach out to the folks from the location is actually on an island. It's called Key Biscayne, small island on the water. It might be a little bit of a stretch in terms of the budget. We'll see where it is. But I know some of the folks there, we might be able to get some very good pricing. But great location. I think it's important to have that. So let's circle back. I'll quickly circle back and let everyone know on the date if the location is available.
Okay.
And then we can start working towards creating the themes.
Right. So let me ask you, because we need to start thinking about that. So how we should do? Should we go with this group, because we decided to have this group? Should we ask people to sign up for this so that we can start working as a group?
I think yes. I think if you can poll through the networks you use from the group that has been participative in terms of the interest. I think if we get a list of folks who are interested in serving on some committee or the other, then we can.
Right. Right now, I can pull right now. So anyone volunteering for any of these group, I already have Jima for theme and outcome group. And anyone else has any?
Yes, I'd like to be in theme and outcome.
That's you. I'll join that one as well.
Cool.
And Sunil, I'm interested also in the same one, theme and outcome. This is Pierre.
Pierre, okay. So can you, Pierre, anyone else I missed? Can you, Pierre? Jima already volunteered in previous meeting. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I miss anyone?
Steve put in the chat that he's interested.
Oh, if there's room, Sunil, Debbie could work in that too.
Okay, Debbie. So, and Hugh, what you said is Steve?
Yeah, he put his in the list. He said he's interested in theme and outcome.
Okay, Steve.
Sunil, you can add me also. This is Salil.
Okay. Okay, so now we need for logistic and invitee list. That is important. I definitely, Hardeep, I will put you and me in logistic and invitee list.
Okay.
Because you are doing logistic anyway, and then Hardeep. Anyone else interested in logistic? I mean, you can be part of 2. It doesn't have to be just 1.
Yeah, Sunil, put Debbie there, and I might have someone from my team since it's going to be in Miami.
Right, it will be in Miami. Okay, so I will put Debbie. So Debbie, you volunteered for theme also, right?
Yeah, but I'll probably have my team member be on.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I'm putting, no, that's fine. So anyone else wants to be logistic and invite? Anyone else? I put Hardeep, myself, Debbie, and Kathy. I will put her also here.
Sunil, I know June left, so you might want to circle back with her to see if she was interested in anything.
Right, yeah, I will. And then partnership fundraising. That Hardeep, we need to coordinate on that.
Yes, Sunil, I'd be happy to jump on that one as well.
Oh, okay, partnership. Yeah. Okay,
see if we can get those greedy consultants to.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
shoot, that's me. I'm sorry, no.
Right. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah.
I think Ken has to take the lead on that.
Right. No. Right. No, partnership is fundraising is important because we cannot run the show without that.
Yeah.
Anyone else here? I know who else? Consultant. I will put Albert also there. Xylem.
Albert from
Xylem.
Alcho.
Yeah, he left. He was there, so he left. But I will put him for, and then Edgar from Arcadis as a partnership. Okay, we got it now. Marketing outreach. So marketing, Hugh, I'm going to put you also there because you suggested this.
Got it.
So Hugh, who else wants to be in marketing outreach?
I'm interested in this as well, Sunil. This is a team.
Okay.
Hardeep, I think Irela had to drop off, but I think either marketing outreach or partnership and fundraising.
I agree. So yes, I'll volunteer her and I'll check with her because she's extremely good at the last two bullets.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I will put.
Last one.
Okay, so I think Hardeep, we have critical mass. We have three in each. So yeah, so we have critical. So perfect.
Neil, I'm sorry. I just question in the logistics and invite list. I know it's heavy in logistics, but we need someone also that understands, the invitation, like really getting the right people there. And I don't think that would be me, or I don't know if there's someone else. I don't know what June's role is.
June, yeah, I will talk to June because I agree that logistic is one thing, but invitee list is very critical for this.
Different.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so now I will work on that. So now, Hardeep, before we go, people are now leaving. So
one suggestion from me, I'm sorry. I think on the logistics and invites list and then marketing and outreach, certainly those are the two areas I think that are partnerships with others in terms of utilizing their resources will be most critical, because there we can get really the lift, whether that it's in kind resource contribution at that point. Certainly that then divests a lot of the effort from really having us to do all of the lift.
Right, sure. No, I agree with that. So I think the first action item, Hardeep, you are still here?
Yes.
So Hardeep, your action item is you will confirm the date, and location is already confirmed, Key Biscayne, but date, if you can, as soon as possible. Then I think I will work first with you and co-chairs to develop. We need a one-pager. We cannot reach out to any partner and all those without having a good storyboard of one-pager, what we are trying to do.
We'll work on that. Yes.
Okay.
So Sunil, Earth Day is Friday, April 22nd. So maybe we should have Thursday and Friday.
So you are saying April 22nd is Earth Day, right? Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking Thursday and Friday. So folks can actually even have Saturday and Sunday, and take a little break. We can actually do a trip to the Everglades maybe on a Saturday for those who might be interested.
Right. No, that will be cool. Okay. Yeah, because that will fit with the theme, because Everglade is kind of sustainability of that is important.
Right. So Thursday, Friday, I'm going to confirm.
Okay. Thursday, Friday. Okay.
We need to book the place like ASAP. So let me get it.
Right. Thursday, Friday. I'm just taking a note. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday trip. Okay.
Yep.
People who's interested. Okay, perfect.
Okay, I need to drop off also.
No, that's fine. So Hardeep, I will work with you. We need a one-pager storyboard before we can reach out to any partners and all those.
We'll do that. We'll talk a little bit offline as well.
Right. Okay, perfect.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, shouldn't the first group, theme and outcome, work on a storyboard? One page.
They should. But what I'm trying to say is we need to provide all the documents and all those. So I will work with Hardeep to provide all these presentation slide. And also I have a lot of material which I cut and pasted here. So I want to upload all those so that you guys can have access to all these materials also.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely that's the whole purpose of this group. So I will work definitely with Hardeep. I have a conference coming up, but I will try to keep moving this. So this was really good. I mean, we recorded all those discussions. So and I have taken a lot of notes, and Kathy and John. So now from Virginia Tech team, Kathy, John Porter, John Green, Steve McKnight, anything?
I've got nothing. I just let everybody know that I'll have the video loaded up later on this evening. And
right, and this all will be at Teams. So better everyone get that team, whatever user ID, password. I don't know how it works.
I've got nothing additional, Sunil. Great discussion.
Yeah, it was great discussion. Yeah, there's no doubt in it.
Yeah, same here, Sunil. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Yep, nothing to add, but a lot to digest, and we can debrief and try to organize this.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. Maybe we can talk offline because there's a lot of stuff here. Yeah.
Yeah. But I have a ream of notes here to try to digest.
Right. Okay. Thanks, everyone.